My friends, we are going to grow and get better together. This is not about me. This is about us. Welcome to Win Today with Johnny Martin. Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Win Today with your boy, Johnny Martin. Hopefully, for those of you that listen to part one of the podcast this week, you know I am talking to GangStar Creative founder, San Diego's most influential woman 2018. She is an artist, designer, branding expert, speaker, and a whole host of other things. Her work has been seen on every major network across the country. It is my pleasure to welcome back my friend, Miss Devona Stimpson. How are you, Devona?
I'm doing great. Excited to get this part two on.
Yeah, as am I. Thank you so much for being as open as you were in episode one to talk to us about your journey, about GangStar Creative. For those of you that missed it, I highly suggest you go back and check it out. At the end of each episode, we'll also attach all of Devona's contact information, her website, Instagram, so you all can go check this phenomenally strong individual who's doing great things with the world. When we left off, Devona, we were talking a little bit about sort of where your passion and need to raise others up comes from. We talked a lot about learning from failure, and also the brand GangStar Creative. I want to talk a little bit about the company that you and your husband founded, Strive and Grind. If you could talk to us a little bit about what Strive and Grind is and what you folks are doing on that platform, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so Strive and Grind is an international branding and creative boutique. And we basically help entrepreneurs and small business owners create premium brands. So we're all about creating memorable, disruptive, and badass brands and helping entrepreneurs basically position themselves as leaders in their industry and charge more for what they're offering. And so we do that basically through a full transformation signature process called our Brand Slam. And we basically take our clients through brand strategy, figuring out, what their vision is, what their mission is, what their core values are, and a lot of other things. And we focus on their brand identity, creating the logo, the whole look and feel. We do a photo shoot, we do a website, and a little bit of brand collateral. And we basically transform their brand in 45 business days.
Wow. That is, in a nutshell, a ton of work in 45 days, right?
It is, yes. I'm glad you understand.
Yes, that is phenomenal. What are some things that you think, as you've done this with Strive and Grind and work with business owners from all over the place, what are some of the mistakes that you think a lot of them make initially, either in why they're not being successful or some of the things that people that are looking to get started in a new business, what are they missing out on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one mistake is just not even focusing on the brand. They think branding, one, they don't know what it is, or two, they're just like, it's just, frivolous things that I can worry about later. I'm not going to invest any money or time into the branding or the design or whatever it is, because people think branding is just like your logo and the colors and whatever. But branding's really all about emotion. It's how people are thinking about you, how they're feeling about you, and what they're saying about you. And so through that, it's all about perception. And so when you're starting a business, it's really important, and we value that branding is actually the most important thing to focus on in your business, even over sales, because without the branding, you can't even make the sales. You don't have anything to offer. You don't have something to put out there. You don't have a face of like the company. And so one is just not focusing on the branding. And then another is really not even having a vision for where you want your company to go to. We've talked to a lot of people, and our clients will ask them, like, what's your 2 to 5 year vision for your business? And a lot of times, 9 times out of 10 surprisingly, they're always just kind of like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
Like, I just know, like, right now, like, I want to make money. Or like, right now, I want to just like sell my stuff or like get this thing done. But if you don't have a 2 to 5 year vision, how are you supposed to build a brand? How are you supposed to grow? How are you supposed to know what decisions to make in your business or what opportunities to take? And so that's kind of like where we really shift and help our clients with.
Yeah, I think it speaks so much to not just from business, but from people's, and I think it's societal too, but our need to have everything and have it yesterday. And then when you hit them with the, well, what is your 2 to 5 year plan? They all look at you like a deer in the headlights because they think if I go see Strive and Grind, man, we're going to turn this thing around like yesterday. and then the bank account is just going to keep getting fatter and fatter and fatter. But I also think that speaks to what you and I spoke about in the first episode, where a lot of people just aren't willing to dig in, bust their ass, and put the amount of time in that's required to actually build something.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, me and my husband were actually talking about this like yesterday, or the other day, really, just how everybody just wants like immediate gratification and results. And I think, due to that is basically social media and a lot of the marketing and advertising out there about like the get rich quick type of things, or like seeing so much success from other people on social media that you follow. But it's like, it takes time. And if you want to build something great and something that actually has weight to it, that's actually like building a legacy, it's going to take years. I mean, our favorite brands have been around for a long time. Like Nike has been around for what, like 20 plus years, and they weren't
Yes,
always like who they are, like they were a track running shoe, and they had a different logo. They were like called like Blue Ribbon something, and
that's
then
right.
now they're like Nike after years and years and years of building their business and building their brand.
Yeah, and it's such a great point. And you can look at examples from all across our culture and society, whether it's fashion, entertainment, music. This notion that because we see a person or a brand more prolifically one day, it must mean that that's exactly how they started. I when I looked at your website, I
Hmm.
saw you. Devona, for those of you that are listening, she's had a chance to rub elbows and talk with some of the most influential branding folks on the planet. So, I saw you with Damon John and Gary Vee, and what a lot of people don't realize is that these folks that we look at and go, that's what I'm striving for. When they first started on their space, they had minimal followers, very few
Oh my
listeners.
gosh,
They were
yes.
scraping to get work to pay the rent. So I think the more that we can really hone in on the fact that, you spoke about it brilliantly, I thought, is that you can't look at how am I going to take Strive and Grind or GangStar Creative and make it global tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Like, yeah, which would be awesome, but we both know that in the spaces that we work in, the ones that make it and that have what we would consider to be success, whether it's monetary, whether it's the impact they have on the world, both, hopefully, this is a long, long game, right?
Yeah, long game, totally. I mean, even people like you mentioned, like Damon John, like he started with Fubu and was popular with that brand. He didn't really get the recognition that he deserved until Shark Tank came around like 10, 15, 20 years later, or whatever it is. And
That's
then like
right.
Gary Vee was in the wine business doing his show, doing the wine stuff for 10 years. And people didn't really know about Gary Vee until like a couple years ago. So it's like, there's a lot of, and I know he talks about that all the time, but it's like that's a lot of time and money
Yeah.
and relationships and just everything invested into building who they are today.
Yeah, and it's a great point about that is I don't know how often you see this, but uh, my guys that are helping me and that work with me, they are so well versed in this game, and they constantly feed me with advice and feedback on how to improve and get better. And one of the things that they say all the time, and I know that you know this, and that Gary Vee says all the time, is that he puts just about everything out there for people to listen to, try to learn from. And I'm one of those people that can only digest so much at a time. So I try to implement
Hmm.
what I digest in a way that works for me. But he says it best that 95% of the people that listen to him will probably never do 95% of the stuff that he suggests, even though we all know it works. How often do you find that with clients? Like, hey, here's the plan, but it's only going to be as good as your execution of that plan.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, we see it all the time with even like unfortunately with some of our clients, right? It's like we help them and we build this brand and vehicle for them, but it's only going to work if you put in the work. And so, we have a handful of our clients who have seen the success because they put the work in. Like one of our first clients is the $1 billion body company, and they're a fitness company helping men thrive in their relationships, wealth, and business. And they started at really like zero 2 years ago, and we've been able to help them become a $1 billion, or not billion, $1 million business. And it was featured in Forbes over that short period of time because one, we built the brand, we built the vehicle for them, but two, they also stayed on course with the brand stayed on course with the roadmap that we created with them and actually put in the work. They didn't just rely on it to like magically work for them. Like, you have to talk to people, you have to make sales calls, like you have to build this brand and like put everything out there. It doesn't work if you're not working. So
Right.
I mean, we see it all the time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it doesn't just work if Devona and her husband and Strive and Grind help you create this, but at the end of the day, it is still your business. It's your baby. And so we're going to
Yeah.
give you the tools to make it successful. We're going to give you the tools in the toolbox to make this thing work. Whether or not you choose to use those tools, that ultimately is going to be up to you. But we're going to help you create a foundation for success, and whether or not you use it will be up to you. Yeah, and I one of the things I share when I speak all the time as well, and when I talk to clients and families and even to guests on the podcast, is this thought that, listen, we have so many resources at our disposal, like, and more people out there are willing to help than you could possibly imagine. So I'm talking to a quick friend right now from San Diego, California, who I've never personally met in my life, but I reached out to her, and after 10, 15, 20 messages back and forth, we make this thing work so we can share a conversation that hopefully will inspire others to get better. That's how this works. We have access to some of the brightest, strongest, most driven people in the world, but for some reason we're afraid to reach out to them.
Yeah.
So I to those of you that are listening, I think that's a great message in and of itself, is that don't be afraid to reach out, because more people will help than you could possibly imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Them just saying no.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like that fear of rejection that we all hate, but you can just, the magic's in the follow up. You just keep following up until they say, hey, you're annoying me, like, leave me alone. Okay, but you got to at least try, because you never know what could happen.
That's right. And I don't think people do enough of that because they're afraid. What
Yeah.
advice what advice do you give to young entrepreneurs or folks when you speak, or clients that come in? What would be some pieces of advice that you'd share with anybody that's listening to this right now, young or old alike, that just want to improve their life, improve their business, relationships? What's Devona going to share with them for how they're going to improve and get better?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I shared a lot of
You
that,
definitely did.
through this part and through the first episode. Just being patient, knowing it's a process, being able to fail forward. But I think one big key thing that has been, a big reason for my success is investing in yourself, financially into yourself. And especially if you're a creative listening to this, a lot of people kind of want to just figure out how to do it themselves, which is cool and usually only works out for so long, or they're just like penny pinchers and trying to be really frugal. And it's like, oh, I'm not going to like, invest in this software, invest in this business coach, or go to this event because it costs money. It's like always the first thought is like, how much does that cost? But really you should be like, how is this going to be, put back into my life? What's the ROI of this type of investment? And
Sure.
so, I learned early on, like, there's a difference between good debt and bad debt. Bad debt is what, we're taught to think about with like credit cards and like buying clothes and cars and shoes, but that's all bad debt because you're not getting a return on that investment. But when you invest in yourself and in your business, that's where like the ROI comes in hand. And that's when it's like, okay to go into debt and okay to use those credit cards, because you're putting yourself on a faster track to success. So I basically would just, my biggest piece of advice would be to invest financially in yourself. Look for a business coach, look for a mastermind, especially investing in masterminds has been a real big key for us to move as fast as we had in our business, because with a mastermind, it's basically just a group of people who are like-minded. This is most of the time. Every mastermind is kind of different, but it's a group of people who are like-minded. They all financially invest into this thing equally, and it's usually like a high-level price tag. But you know that you're surrounded by quality people, and when you're putting in that money, like you have to put in the work and effort. Like you're not just going to fork over X amount of dollars and be like, oh, well, that's cool. I might go to like this thing. I might talk to my group. But when you invest in yourself, you're actually going to like take action, and you're actually going to get the value from that group or that community. And so, yeah, just investing in yourself, investing into things like that will help you grow yourself personally and your business.
Yeah, and I think we don't even bat an eyelash when we want to spend $100 or $200 on a pair of shoes or a new outfit, or the amount of money we
I
spend on
know.
the amount of money we spend on coffee every week. But when it comes to, you make a great point, when it comes time to like, hey, I'm going to ante up, and this really could help me down the road. You talked about the ROI, your return on investment. Well, what could this mean for me, as you spoke about before? What could this mean for me in 2 years? What could it mean for me in 3, 4, 5 years? And it's very hard for us to see sometimes because we want it now or we want it yesterday, and so we don't think about how this personal investment could serve our brand for years to come. So I think it's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, when you just think about it, like an example, like say you're starting out and you're trying to build a website and you're over here trying to figure out how to build a WordPress website, you're watching tutorials and you're just like pulling your hair out. You're spending like days doing this when you could literally just drop maybe $1,000 to somebody to quickly build you a website in like 6 hours. And
Yeah,
then you can
like,
use all that time
what's your
to
time
like
worth,
focus
right?
on other things.
Yeah,
Yes.
be intentional with your time and use it effectively,
Yes.
for sure. What are the does do you are you the type of person that has, one of the things I ask of all my guests, and we've had some really really cool answers from folks from all different walks of life. We spoke to a U.S. Navy SEAL, best-selling author, actor. His name's Rourke Denver. We asked him about his non-negotiables, and he shared two. He said you have to learn something new every day, and you have to intentionally put yourself in uncomfortable positions every day. So I'm just wondering for you, Devona, if there are anything in your life that, as you think about it now, or, any reflecting through the podcast or ahead of time, if there are any non-negotiables for you.
That's a good question. I like those two too that person
Yeah,
had mentioned.
I know, and I stole them, to be totally honest. When he shared them, I definitely have tried to implement those in my life every day, and it's amazing the changes that have occurred because of it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have anything definite for that answer. I feel like I'm in this stage of my life where like I'm still figuring it out. I'm kind of in this transition of, leaving the branding company actually and going into my brand and figuring out myself and focusing on this year of me like just being happy. So I would just to give you something at least. I think it's just doing something each day that like makes me happy that isn't necessarily just like work related, whether it's just like dancing or watching like a show or just like going on a date with my husband or just doing something, going out with friends, just doing something that makes me feel good and happy that isn't necessarily just like work related. It's something that kind of just fuels my soul and I just feel good on the inside. Doing something like that every day, I think is something that's really important, has been able to like help me kind of make this year a better year.
Yeah, and I think that stuff is so important because we can get so wrapped up in our work. We
Yeah.
talked about this in a previous episode that this notion of, or this idea of work life balance. I have a really really hard time with that because for me, there's just life. Work is a
Mhm.
part of it, but if I'm not doing something, to your point, every day that feeds my soul, makes me smile, makes the people that I care about the most feel loved, valued, and appreciated, well, then to me, it's sort of like a wasted day. I'm sure you could very easily get wrapped up in your work from the time you wake up to the time you rest your head. But at some point, you're going to realize that, wow, I haven't been feeding myself, like personally been feeding myself. And so I think that helps us to reevaluate sort of where we're at and where we want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, a different thing for everybody on like what you are willing to sacrifice. I do feel like in the beginning, like that's when like the going gets tough and you have to sacrifice a lot. I know in the beginning for us, we sacrificed, a lot of things, especially like our health, our happiness. We were just grinding all the time or striving and grinding all the time, as we would say. No friends, it was just like focused on the grind. And I mean, that could probably be a big reason why we are where we are, but it also is a big reason why we are where we are too, if that
Sure.
makes sense.
I know. It makes perfect sense.
Um,
It's a great point.
yeah. And so it's just kind of like, you got to make that decision for yourself and just do what's right for you, what you feel is right for you. Because there's going to be so many people, leaders out there, like saying that you should do this or you should always hustle or you should, have the work life balance and there's going to be so many different pieces of advice. But I think at the end of the day, it's really what you're willing to do for yourself, what you're willing to sacrifice and go through. And just kind of like making that your own decision. But just know, like, if you don't put in the work, all up front, like it's going to take longer. But if you're okay with that, then so be it. But if you are willing to make that sacrifice and put all the work up front and kind of, not focus on yourself, just know that there's going to be a time where you're going to hit a brick wall and it's not going to feel good. So
Sure. Yeah, you got to, and I think that really speaks to sort of what we talked about before, and that is, you got to really define your why and what's it going to take to get there, and what are you really willing to invest into defining that why.
yeah.
So one of the other things that you've done, and I just want to talk about it for a couple of minutes because I think it's awesome, is you co-authored a book called Passionistas. And for those of you that are listening, and Devona can certainly speak about it more specifically than I can, but Passionistas the book really comes from a bunch of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a bunch of very powerful women, successful women who are looking to use that space through their writing to empower other women to do exactly what Devona's doing through GangStar Creative, through Strive and Grind. So tell me a little bit about how Passionistas came out, and are we going to see any other books from Devona Stimpson?
Yeah, and so my good friend Erica Dela Cruz, her mentor Kyle Wilson has like a publishing company, does like masterminds and things like that, and he's done publishing for people like Jim Rohn and a lot of like the people that we look up to. And so she had this idea for this project of basically having a collective of women. There's about 40 of us in this book. And it's Passionistas, Tips, Tales, and Tweetables from women pursuing their dreams. And we all have our own chapter. And it was really just actually bringing women together because we all have our own story and tips and advice and experiences to share. But two, like there's a huge need for women empowerment and women in business and women just trying to inspire, community and society. So that was kind of like how the book came about. There's all different types of stories, from like personal, like vulnerable stories shared by some of these women to tactical business stuff, to just like simple life tips. So yeah.
Really,
and as far
really cool.
and as far as like any more books from me, it's so funny because growing up I was like, I don't see myself being an author. Like I used to hate reading and like I hate writing, and then like after doing this I was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. And it's funny because my husband's always wanted to be an author, and I got to just be like, hey, babe, like I got the author title before you.
Yeah, hey, honey, I wrote a book before you did, so get to work.
And I didn't even really want to begin with, but after doing the process, it was like, oh, okay. And then you also learn like you don't have to actually write to like write a book. There's so many different ways you can actually get a book published, and so my viewpoint on that has changed a lot, and I definitely want to write another book. I'm not sure what it would be, if it'd be around something specific. I think I'd probably write something probably relating to helping creatives, and then also something like sharing like my story, almost like a memoir type of thing.
Sure. I think either one would be enjoyable to read, and I think would definitely resonate with the folks out there.
Thanks.
So, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully, the takeaways for me as you're listening to this great conversation I've had with Devona Stimpson from GangStar Creative, from Strive and Grind, author of Passionistas. We will include all the links in the show notes. Hopefully the takeaways for you are: don't be afraid to fail forward, exercise patience, and do what you can throughout this journey to feed yourself as well. Try to work to find that relationship between how much work you're willing to put in and if you're still feeding yourself from a standpoint of happiness and joy and love, because all those things are so important. Devona, I cannot thank you enough for joining me today on the show. I'm grateful, I'm humbled, and I look forward to continuing to speak with you down the road. Thank you very, very much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
It was great fun for me as well, and I'm sure for our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, check out the next episode of #Win Today with Johnny Martin. As always, be good to those you love, let them know you love them, and have a great day. Thank you to Seven Roads Media and Cloud9 Marketing Group for co-producing the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever platform you're on. Without you, I cannot continue to do what I love. You can follow me personally on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter @RealJohnCMartin. I'd love to hear from you, so please reach out with comments and questions after each episode. Your comments push me to get better every day. As always, thank you for your continued support. And don't forget, win today.